did you come to begin your journey in the world of immersive experiences?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's some jackhammers happening in the back. I just want to call them out real quick. So it's already the first obstacle to surviving this podcast. I've got a couple cats too that might jump on this keyboard any moment. So I've
Okay.
got full of obstacles here. So yeah, Meta for You is a company I started a few years ago. And it happened because I am an actor and was performing in different mediums, film, TV, theater, and theatrically live. I was doing more experimental kind of plays where all of a sudden there's no fourth wall and I'm interacting directly with guests and audience members. And the background for acting that I had was Meisner based, which is very much creating a moment-to-moment reality with your scene partner. So applying those concepts to audience members would create this sort of space where you're improving with the audience and inviting them into improv, right? And basically that you're creating a reality together by doing that. And this is something people do in their everyday lives. They don't even realize it, but it's a very human thing to do. The art of conversation is the same. And so those principles, I started being approached more and more by different companies to help them with their live events. So this became branded activations like promoting streaming network, different intellectual properties, launch parties, and usually it would begin by finding characters, like they wanted certain actors and characters at their parties. Um, and from doing those events, discovered that it's so much more than that. I mean, the idea of having a character at an event, it gives the audience permission that it's like, oh, okay, this is like not a real person, so I can play and pretend with them. Um, but this can also be applied to something not as fantastical as a character. This can be applied whenever permission is given to play and to be present. And that became like the core foundations for interpersonal dynamics design, which is what we do now. It's consulting for live events, and much like there's sound design or set design, jackhammer design in the background, if you can hear, we do the people interaction design. So that's the space where guests get to be immersed into their experience of the event.
Interesting. You
Yeah,
mentioned interpersonal dynamics design. Can you elaborate a little bit like what that means?
absolutely. Yeah. So that's specifically it. We focus on the interpersonal space at live events, which is the guest experience between guests and staff. We discovered, I mean, my background's acting, working with a lot of amazing actors, and we became known in the industry for having this amazing network of immersive persons, these actors that know how to create a moment-to-moment reality with audience members. And that skill lends itself very well to creating the space at any event. Um, to immerse the guest. And a case in point there is in LA, there was a, where we kind of incubated as performers, Los Angeles, there was this DIY immersive scene that was happening for a few years prior to the shutdown. And it's coming back now a little bit. But it was very big. It was like a golden age of this immersive DIY performance where actors would create these experiences out of different site-specific site-specific experiences out of wherever they could. So apartments, warehouses, and all you needed really was one human immersing the other human. So discovered that people immerse people. Sets don't really do it. I mean, you could see something and you walk into an experience like an immersive Van Gogh type thing, and you look around and you're like, wow, this is great. Um, but you're not necessarily given that same immediate sense of presence as you would with another person knowing what they're doing, immersing you, basically, like bringing you into the moment and saying, okay, you're here, this is what's happening, and then let's play. Follow me, all that stuff. And
Interesting.
so that aspect of interpersonal dynamics is what we focus on designing. So we'll work with different teams, different um, companies that do build outs and do sound design, lighting design, um, creative design, just all that stuff. And we work very seamlessly with all those other companies, focusing on what we do. Yeah,
Okay. I got a multi-part question slash
yeah.
thought for you. Have you done any work on Broadway in New York, or are you mostly LA?
Ooh, like Broadway, like the theaters in Broadway and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I have not. I grew up in New York. I did some off-Broadway plays. Yeah, this long time ago. But Broadway's very cool and interesting. This is the difference with immersive interactive. It almost the trap is to call it theater, right? Because
Hmm.
the whole aspect of a theater, like what we call theater, which is a really kind of funny name for it because we don't go see sports and call it stadium. Hey, I'm going to see stadium tonight, like gonna catch a stadium with my friends. But that's basically what we do with theater. And because the convention is built in there, as an audience member, you know what to do. You walk in there, you get a ticket. You walk in there, you find your seat, you sit down, and then you basically shut down. Play happens on stage, curtain comes down, play is done, you get up out of your seat, you get up. That was theater. Um, and so the idea of like, oh, okay, there's actors performing scripts. We call that theater just because of that convention that was set up, but it's almost like a new word needs to exist for that, for immersive interactive.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wait, you
but
left out a step in the theater experience. I think it's
yeah,
get your ticket,
yeah,
get super baked and have a drink, then sit down and enjoy the show.
that's
No,
right.
I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
no, but it's funny. Yeah, the concession stand and all aspects of what that can entail is such a big part of entertainment. It's almost kind of like um, these are all giving people permission for their own sense of like, oh, I'm gonna relax into this experience and be present in my way for it. It's funny, it makes me think of an Onion article where it's like, new music festival is just a giant field for people to do drugs in. Um, and it's funny because like that's that's what a lot of these events give people permission for. Like this is I don't know why I'm saying this on a podcast about not being big into sports. Why am I doing it? I love sports, but I just never, got into it. I don't know why. I love going to them, but like I imagine people like go to sports because they're given permission to just fucking scream their heads off and stuff and just
Yeah.
like have fun with people. And it's like, and you know what, I've been to sports, I know sports, and yeah, I've done that too, so
You've
that's
been to
fun.
stadium.
I've been to stadium. I like stadium's a good time.
So I've had, in this podcast, we have like a lot of like healing, wellness, psychedelic people. And I had a coach on, I forget what you call him, like a personal coach.
Hmm.
And he said one of the ways that he kind of self-administered therapy on himself was actually writing a play where every character was an aspect of himself.
Oh,
Um,
brilliant.
and it was like a way for him to like work through his shit. And I thought that was so cool. And I'm curious, like, do you find any like how do people grow even if they're an audience member who checks out one of these immersive experiences? Like, I imagine some people listening to this are just like, oh man, that sounds like I'm kind of anxious about trying that. I don't know if I want to go to an experience where I'm suddenly part of the show. And like, do you find any growth or like kind of wellness aspect to experiencing one of your immersive events?
Oh my goodness, great questions. Three parts. Like, first part is the coach. That's amazing. Like, we did a show called Snowfridge where it's like the concept of in your dreams, all your everyone you see is you. Um, and
I
how does
agree.
that extend to life too? But also him giving voice to all the different parts of him. That's really cool. And so that aspect of healing uh, for immersive experiences, the most healing aspect about them, I think, is you're given um, the individual a sense of presence. You're giving them a voice, maybe not actually like they not speaking wise or words, but you're giving them that space that they are of value, they are worthy, they're important to the play, to the experience, because immersive experiences they have this one key factor, key through line that ties all of them together, which is they don't work without the audience. That the whole point of the audience, of the experience, is for an audience to be immersed in it. If there's no one to be immersed in it, then it just can't really happen. Like a play, a film, TV, it could play to a house, an empty house, and still happen. Um,
Hmm.
I make a joke that I've been there. Music shows and theater it still goes show goes on, right? But
Right.
an immersive play, like we'll play test those when we work on them, go through it as audience members because that's the whole point. There's the individual is being immersed, and so the most healing wellness aspect of that, which is almost like a byproduct, is that you're given this experience of that you are um, the most important person in your life. You know, like it's you. There's nobody else behind your eyes. There's nobody else there. It's just you are it. Um,
Hmm.
and what's funny about that anxiety you speak of, where it's like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. I think people might think of this maybe a spotlight on stage, where it's like, oh, I get all this attention. I go on stage. I'm on the spotlight. I don't know if I want to do that. But the truth is that every human is doing that since the moment they were born. They are the center of their own experience. It doesn't work without them there. Like
Yeah.
if there's you know we're taught to look at our environment and everything outside of it and encompass it, but it is ultimately at the end of the day, it began with you, it ends with you, um, and that is something that's very easily forgotten. Um, and even if it's not expressly talked about in the immersive experience, you inherently feel it because you're there, and it's a gift. Just like all of this lifelong immersive experience that you're in, it's this experience, it's this gift, it's this um, ex like event designed for you to be immersed in. Is one
Hmm.
way to look at it. And that's like the most healing aspect of it.
I like what you said about how we are the most important person in our own life. And I think lots of times we forget that, you know, lots of
Hmm.
times people or myself, I'll just speak for myself, like I start to get concerned with like what other people will think or what other people will want from me or what other people will prefer. And I think it's common important person in my own life.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
It's funny because like immediately like the traps there are kind of like thinking, oh, it's selfish. Solipsism come to mind. You know, like it's the idea is that it's all for you, right? Like you're on the inside of your head. You're the one processing all the data. You're doing all that. Um, it's almost like playing a video game where it's like you got to be a good game player. Like, yeah, you're the one playing the video game. Don't be a dick about it. Don't go like ruining everyone else's experience of the game. You know what I mean?
mhm.
Um, I think that's the golden rule, new golden rule, old rule, really. Um, but that's what's funny about it is thinking of life this way really opens up all those aspects where it's like, um, trusting that other people are having this experience that you're having. Like you are the most important person in your life because you're the one going through this life. It's just inherently so. Um, However, there's beauty and power in uh, not putting yourself above the situation that you're in or the people you're with or something like that. Does that make sense? Where it's kind of like um, that because I feel like that's the thing where it's like I'm the most important person. I'm not going to talk to anybody or whatever. Um, but there's something missed there where it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like you're missing the point. It's so funny. So not to get religious, but like the word sin, right? Um, I think it translates to like miss the mark, like you missed the target, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I
so
think,
I see that as like if you sin, it's like not like it's more like you missed the point. You missed the point of being human. If you're
mm-hmm.
killing someone else, you missed the point. Not what you're supposed to do here. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Good point. Good point.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like, in that sense, it ties into like the video game of life. Um, yeah. So but you're right, and it is you as the individual are at the heart of your immersive experience of this life. And that's what's funny too. It's people say like, oh, immersive theater, immersive event, immersive this. Um, it's 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 a misnomer because it's not that there's this immersive theater. It's not immersive stadium. It's not that. It's you're giving permission for your guests to have an immersive experience of your event. It's not the other way around because I mean, you're giving people because they're the ones having the experience.
Yeah.
Like if you
I'm guessing that this doesn't happen, but I'm very curious if you ever get a guest audience member who's just like rebellious.
hmm
Like, you ever get someone who, like, I'm guessing the storyline is kind of supposed to guide them like in one direction, and then you start to pull them one way, and they're like, no, I want to go the other way. Like, does that
yeah.
ever happen?
Oh, yes. Like
Because that's
oh
what
my
I would
goodness.
want to do, to be honest.
Well, that's yeah, people want to break the game. They kind of want to see what's up. Like, I mean, I've done shows where people are like, "Wait, are you an actor? Is this like real?" And I'm like, "What do you think?" Like, so it's really that's there's different levels of that, right? Where it's like I remember doing like murder mystery shows like way back in the day, and some audience members being like, "That person's not really dead," and I'd have to be like, wow, you're a genius. Yeah, this is a show. What do you think? Like, that we're pretending here. And the person would laugh. And um, what would happen is we'd be connecting on a level, like a meta level, which is why the company's called Meta for You. It's just the service provided is ultimately this meta awareness um, to the experience that's happening. And so it's really funny, like people's like grasps on different realities, where it's
Hmm.
like, you know, some indignant audience member for a show might be like, "This is not the '70s, no," and it's like, "Correct, you're right, we're pretending." But it's like we're also pretending that it's whatever year this is now. We're also pretending that we're both humans. Like how far do you want to take this, buddy? You know what I mean? Like this
How
is
meta
like
do you want to get here?
exactly. And so,
See,
yeah.
now my thing is like, if I was an audience member, I wouldn't want to break the game. I wouldn't want to be like, we're not in the 70s. I would just want to try to push it in a direction that no one was prepared for,
I
and
love that. Yeah.
I
That's
think
that.
that that's
Yeah.
like there's a fine line there between the difference between like I don't want to call it out as being a performance. I just want to like see if we can take it to somewhere that was completely unplanned.
I love that you brought this up because that's actually something that I think I feel lucky that like I came up in the LA scene for like this immersive scene because that was something that was most valued in terms of just like those kind of shows. I think like the big influence out here is on the West Coast certainly was Michael Douglas, the movie he was in, The Game, David Fincher movie really from the 90s. Um, a lot of Gen Xers super into this stuff. So younger audiences they don't even know this movie exists, but it really was like a transformative movie in terms of this company CSR that would design these experiences for people where it blurring the lines of what's real and what's imaginary. And when you're playing like that, it's almost like we would come up with this almost like theater Aikido of the audience, whatever they came at us with, we would turn that into the experience, right? So, like, also improv, I was grateful to study at Second City, some amazing teachers, some legendary people, and they instilled a sense of just world building. I mean, it's done for comedic purposes. You know, it's done Second City more than other improv, comedic improv places value the truth and reality of situations more, which I think was also like a lucky place to study in that sense. Um, because it's it really is, and Meisner too, that moment to moment world building, reality building. Um, when you do that with an audience member, like you come to a show and all of a sudden you're kind of like asking me a question that might not have been in the script. If I really understand like the whole, all the stuff like that I need to understand about the character, the situation, the goal, like of the story, like where is this narrative going? You know, where do we want the audience member to be by the end of it? Um, like I can add that sort of almost trompe, like that optical illusion or just illusion to your experience that this is all part of it. It's like, oh yeah, this is part of it. That's part of it. There's a bunch of shows. There's one show, well, Darren Bousman, who's just amazing horror director, just great director. He did this show called The Tension Experience, which is full of that. Um, I was a plant in it, and I ended up being like almost like I would go with the group, pretend to be an audience member, and then something terrible would happen to my character. um, and I would act almost like a human thermostat to the experience, and that element of it was fun because it was like the super meta narrative that was happening to the show. Like the show was kind of on tracks, but then there was this sort of like wild card of like, oh, however deep the audience wants to dig, they could get to something interesting. And it doesn't need to be much, it just needs to be enough. It's like that joke of you don't need to outrun the bear, you just need to outrun the slowest person. Terrible joke. But it's you don't need much to create that illusion. You just need to outrun, you know, the audience member. And so if you're one step ahead of them, then you can kind of, you know, do some interesting art with that. Um, yeah, and some other shows, like the show we did on Hollywood Boulevard called The Stars. It was Ceaseless Fun was the company that did that. And we were just, it was open world. It was, well, open, that's not really what it was. It was out in the open, right? It was out in the open, Hollywood Boulevard. We didn't close it down. You know, there was people walking by doing all this stuff, but the actors would find the audience member and take them down the block to this other experience and so on, like a daisy chain. Um, but as an audience member, you're there in the experience, taking in all of it, and you're like, okay, who are the actors in this? And all of a sudden, the synchronicities come to life of just kind of like, whoa, did you plan that? That's perfect timing. So it's almost like doing this job taught me to open up the audience guest's mind to the synchronicities in life. And I know
Hmm.
like I've done it for myself too, where there's something beautiful about connecting the dots in life, and just being open to the synchronicities of life. Um, I've got this quote that I like mentioning that's attributed to Einstein, where it's like the most important decision someone needs to make is whether they live in a friendly or hostile universe, right? Um,
Hmm.
And this idea of like, oh, I'm in an immersive experience that was designed for me, and they meant to do this and they meant to do that and all this stuff, um, opens up the possibility that this is a friendly universe. Like, this is all for you. Why wouldn't it be friendly? It's like, we want you to enjoy the experience. I don't know who the we is, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's like,
Um,
however we view the world, if we view it as a dangerous place, then our experience tends to be like a dangerous, fearful experience just in
yeah.
life. And if we view the world as like a happy, comfortable place that is kind of unfolding for us, then our general experience will be more like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, happy is ideal, but like, it's thinking of it as a friendly thing. Then all of a sudden, if shit goes down, then it's like, a clumsiness on their part of like, oh shit, you know, like, are you okay? You know, like, sorry, that got fucked up there. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
even if shit happens in life, it's this if it's a friendly universe, then it's not like, ha, we're gonna fuck you over. It's more like, ooh, that was rough. How are you doing? Are you okay? Okay, moving on. Let's go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an audience member go through one of the immersive show experiences and just have like a amazing like cathartic experience, like they're like crying at the end, or they're just like blown away, like I did not expect that, like I thought I'd come to this and it would be just kind of interesting, and then it just kind of becomes way more expansive than they ever expected.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is I mentioned that show Snowfridge that we did. It's my wife Carly and Kate Lane designed this show. And it was like a 20-minute experience where the audience would answer some questions and then they go into this experience. And there was like a almost like a 10 to 1 actor ratio rate of like just all these different characters playing them. Like if you came in the experience, you know, everyone would have your name, you know? Um, and
Like all the actors would be named like Jeff.
Yeah, they'd be like, "Oh, you're Jeff. I'm Jeff too. Hey, my name's Jeff. Oh, weird." Like they would start like that, you know, and then it would
Hmm.
be like a big party. It's almost like a dream sequence of you know, it's like the coach you were talking about, the play they wrote for themselves. Yeah. But that's one that comes to mind where, ooh, I don't know why it moves me just to even think about it, but just like, yeah, really transformative experiences for them. Um, it almost created what was called like a constellation sort of therapy thing, I think, where depending how deep the audience member went, like their answer, right? Um, if it was something that really like bothered them, they would get the chance to kind of have these problems aired out and sort of almost popcorned around them of just like, you know, one Jeff's handling this aspect of it and one Jeff, like if Jeff, if you came in and you wrote down, I don't have enough time, then, you know, one person in there might be like, hi, my name's Jeff, but I'm sorry, I'm busy. I can't talk to you right now. I've got to go do this. And one person would be like, I'm Jeff and I've got all the time in the world, man. Like, yeah, let's chill, you know, and just seeing that happen around some people, it was just like it it brought like a release and like almost this lightness to something that was very heavy for them.
Hmm.
And just even just sometimes like people are coming in with this like they're holding this thing, and if they just loosen it up a little bit, it'll take care of itself. It'll be like ah, and then they're crying, and then just like um, and then the transformation happens because that's all they
How do
needed was
you
yeah.
how do you like how do you come up with this stuff? How do you plan it? How do you write a script like that? And how do
Uh,
you navigate like the people like me who want.
oh hey, there you
Oh,
are.
we lost you for a second.
Oh yeah,
Did you catch my question? I was just
yeah.
saying
The
like,
tail end got frozen for a second. Do you mind asking it again?
yeah, like how do you write one of these, and how do you plan one of these? Like what does that look like?
Mm,
Slash like how do you plan for the improvised, like you never know what someone's reaction is going to be, or like
hmm.
someone like me who would be really trying to ask a question that I'm hoping is an unexpected question.
Yeah. Well,
So
that
how do you
speaks
navigate that?
totally, totally. Yeah. Like that particular play speaks to like the genius of like Kate and Carly and just their improv background, where it was like it was an improvised show. And so Kate would do this thing called paradigm building, I think, where it was just like with the cast, they kind of build out this like ensemble situation where whatever the person was thrown in, whatever the word was, whatever this, they would understand how to build an experience from it that would be reflective back to them. So that in that particular show, that's what happened there. And it is a magical thing. In our experiences and in our design, this is kind of like the root of it. So having an actor that can improvise is of absolute necessity for this kind of work. more so than somebody who can like bust out a monologue. Experientially, like it's there's so much data coming at an audience member, a guest, when they kind of are like, okay, I'm immersing myself, even though they're immersed all the time. I'm immersing myself in this situation. Okay, there's these sets and sound, and all of a sudden, this character comes up to me and is gonna like launch a freaking like paragraph monologue at me. Like, there's no way I'm gonna remember anything you just said, buddy.
Hmm.
No matter how eloquently written it was, just because it's a different medium. If you're sitting in a seat watching a play on stage, you can kind of like shut down your body and just like really pay attention to the words, really pay attention to like the nuances. And then film TV, same, like it's all there, focus, the foveal, like it's just like, boom, look at this, focus on this. An experiential, it's kind of up to the audience member what they focus on. So it usually turns into a floodlight, sort of peripheral, soft focus, taking in the experience sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, or the foveal might be on like, something else, like, oh, cool, or like this song sounds familiar, and they miss whatever is being said to them and all that. Um, that said, a big trap that we consult with like event designers on is be careful of like doing that scripting wise with like your actors because it might look great on paper, but like your guests will be like, what just happened? And instead, um, you focus more on just like their experience of what's happening and what they would need to know at that moment. Like just break it down to kind of like, okay, I'm seeing a village. What village am I in? You're in this village. Cool. Okay. What comes next? It's just like my name's Joe. Cool, Joe. Okay, cool. Um, we're gonna go find this now. Cool. We're gonna go find this now. You know what I mean? Like not
Yeah.
like in 18 bloody blue, the village a thing was built in my family of the Joe and like uh,
Typically,
yeah,
will if you're like, "Hey, my name's Joe. We're gonna go find such and such and work on this mystery or whatever."
yeah.
Typically, is the audience member going to follow you and go along?
Yeah, because I mean, they want to.
Yeah.
Audiences love instructions. They love like knowing what the fuck is going on. Can you
Yeah.
curse on this podcast?
You can say
It's a
whatever
little
the
late.
fuck you
Yeah.
want, and
Yeah.
they came for that too. They didn't
They can.
come to not follow.
Yeah, I mean, like, it depends what's instructed. They love instruction, so whatever's instructed to them when they got their ticket. This is a walkthrough experience. It's going to be Van Gogh all over the walls. Cool. I know what to do. I'm going to walk around and look at Van Gogh on the walls. Got it. You know?
Hmm.
Or it's like, you are going to come follow Joe in the village of blah to rescue so and so. Okay, cool. Oh, you're Joe. I read about you. Okay, I'm going to follow you. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
having all these instructions are cool. Video games have a way, like the tutorial levels and stuff, but they usually have a much, uh, they expect more from the players because there's more time. Like you buy the game, you're gonna have the game for as long as you want, and you're gonna play it as long as you want. So you can take more time with that, but usually it needs to be more urgent and more immediate for live experiences, just because timing wise. And
How
also that's
long? How long do they last?
it depends. I mean, some experiences are like 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Some are like an hour, some are longer, like 3 hours. Like, that's also important to kind of note at the beginning. But that's the idea is all that stuff can prime the audience member into uh, knowing what to expect and what to play on.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you
yeah.
think is what do you like the best if you're either producing or acting in an immersive experience? Do you like it to be like quick, medium, long? Like what do you prefer?
Well, it's funny. So like I like it when it's got those moments of presence and of an acknowledgement and validation. Like, and so that's why we always do that. And that can happen in a 5-minute experience, and it can happen in like a 2-day long experience. Like we just did
Whoa.
this worked on this project at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado called the Overnightmare. We worked with iHeart Comics and Peacock and Blumhouse, and that was like audiences, guests could get a you know, buy a ticket, they would stay there for 2 days, 2 nights. So they
And
were
this is
really like,
This is the
Yeah.
Shining Hotel, correct?
The one that inspired The Shining. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Famously so. A lot of people go there to pay homage to Stephen King. Um, uh, yeah, and it was based on that hotel. And there is definitely haunted vibes there, which is a whole other thing we could talk about. Which the short answer there is I think uh, echoes energy, and if it's your immersive experience, then you're the one who's like uh, noticing that. Anyway, I'm getting off track, but this was like a multi-day thing, and what's funny is it's again you're thinking of it as like the audience, the guest's experience, right? Their immersive experience of your event. So whether the event is like like 5 minutes, a day, a week, a month, a life, a year, a moment, it's like a song. Um, but yeah, whether it's whatever it is there, making your guests aware and feel present that they are in this immersive experience, those moments are, I think, the ones that make the experience special. People can go through their whole lives and never really kind of have that moment of presence, that moment of feeling like, oh, I'm here and this is an experience, and I'm of value, like, and I matter. It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, you do, you matter.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm. And by moment of presence, you mean like you're not thinking about the past, you're not thinking about the future, you're just completely where you are right now. Is that kind of what you mean by that?
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. It's funny, like for me personally, I know minds work different ways, different people, but like it's there's everything happening all at once, and it is that foveal vision of just like the focus, floodlight, spotlight, let's call it. And so wherever your spotlight shines, and I guess if I could go further, that moment of presence to me is tied into this sense of gratitude of just, oh, I'm here in this moment now. It's almost gratitude because there's nothing attached to it. Um, how can there be? It's infinite. It's just, it's now. Um, and that's always with you. That exists all the time. Time's a construct. All these other elements exist in order for us to make sense of this everything all the time, all at once experience that we're in. Um, and so it ties into that. It's almost like an a playful, entertaining way to remind you that, hey, you're here, you're here, you are here right now.
Hmm.
Cool, go enjoy.
Yeah. You said some cool stuff there, like talking about presence and time as a construct. Slightly different direction, but can you tell me a little bit about your personal transcendental meditation sort of
Yeah. Oh,
hybridized
totally.
version, or tell me about that?
Totally. So, okay, well, I have to shout out my mom, who's a healer, and she's got a couple books out. And she, I'm a Gen Xer, so this was in the 90s. I was a teenager and growing up.
Real quick, I'm
Uh,
sorry to cut you off. What are her books?
Oh, her books. Oh no, you put me on the spot. I should know their name.
Tell
One
tell
is
me later. Tell me later.
wait, no, no, no. Seeing the Dead Talking with Spirits is her first one, and
Cool.
the second one, shoot, I can't remember the name of the second one. Okay. Anyway,
So the 90s and transcendental meditation. Go.
yes, yes, 90s and transcendental meditation. Well, so she talks about this in her first book. Is her own journey from kind of being a skeptic to just realizing like uh, just the possibilities of what people would call new age healing, wellness, all that stuff. Um, I don't want to spoil any aspect of the book, but it was she goes through an experience that helped her discover that not only she believed in that stuff, but also it really helped her. And then it was something that she knew how to do all along. And so for that, like that really opened up the door for me of just like, especially growing up in New York at the time in the 90s. It's the 90s. Yeah. Um, it just that spirituality and new age and wellness, it was okay. You can check that out. Don't feel weird. Don't feel woo woo for checking that out and being into it. Because I also was always into it, and I just didn't really, it wasn't really something that was very common back then. You kind of had to go searching for it a little bit. Um, and that led me to just, through different ways, find this meditation teacher that taught, I think, a pirated version of transcendental meditation. I don't know if like, yeah, I don't know what the deal is there, but it was a mantra-based meditation, and it came from the Shankara tradition and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. It's that mantra-based meditation, um, teaching just about kind of like keeping the mind lively while the body gets the rest it needs, and all the ideas about silence being the canvas, and just the infinite absolute that everything goes on, and all that stuff. Good stuff. Really good stuff to look
Amazing.
into. And now, it's really funny. This was like, 25 years ago, but like now all this stuff is like common knowledge almost. It's a lot of people growing up are just like, oh yeah, the absolute. Oh yeah, we're all in a simulation. Oh yeah, this and that. But for thousands of years, I mean, this was called Maya, the illusion, like, did you know that this world is like, possibly just your dream? What? That's crazy, like, um, and it's really wild that this stuff is more common now, because it really is the right time, that a form of entertainment which requires you to be like, wow, I'm in a reality. Um, that's a form of entertainment now, that people's minds have opened up so much that they can conceive of this meta awareness of just like, oh wow, like even just like VR headsets. Like I think the lead is buried there with VR headsets. I was lucky to work in them, work in the VR world. And to me, the greatest thing that people miss about VR headsets and any kind of, you know, headset like that, is it gives you the tangible example of what it is to transcend realities. Like, and people take that for granted, but it's like, yeah, look, you put on the headset, you're in a new reality, and maybe you look at your hands, they look different. And then you're just somewhere new. You take off the headset, you got these hands again. You're in this reality. People take that for granted, but this is stuff that like was secret, knowledge about enlightenment that was, you had to like hike up some mountains to figure this stuff out for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Um, and it's all here, and it's all within our reach, and that's pretty exciting. So to answer your question, yeah, all that meditation and stuff really set the groundwork for uh, being able to see this form of entertainment this way, like almost like, oh yeah, it's just games, it's just theater, it's just that. I'm like, no, dude, it's so much more. Um,
Why do you think VR? I feel like it didn't really.
ah,
Why do you think that is?
uh, it cut out, but I think, like you said, VR, it didn't go on.
VR, like it to me, like it didn't really like take off as much as I
Yeah.
expected it would.
This is so I'll tell a quick story. Like the company I got to work with is called Tender Claws, and they're just geniuses. They design all kinds of games, and they got into VR, and they designed this game called the Under Presents. And we would have it would be an experience players could play, and actors would hop in to the world and act with them as different avatars, like live with the players. So it was straight up like immersive interactive theater in
With the
VR
headset on.
with the headset on. Like, so
Mhm.
we'd both be in the world and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, I was brought on December 2019. The contract was just supposed to go until March or May. It was supposed to go May 2020. And then March 2020 came along, and the world had something else in mind. And so everybody was home. And I use this very Gen Xer analogy, but it's almost like we were like the Bubba Gump shrimp boat of immersive theater companies, where it's like we were the only ones doing this work, that was able to have like proximity-based interactive work um, like this during the shutdown. Everything else, there was some great sites like Gather and stuff where you could kind of move around a character. Video games, had this too, but it wasn't as intentional in like we're going to create experiences and theatrical experiences. Video games have all this stuff, um, but it's almost like it hasn't really. They're more like feeding the old paradigm of why a person would play video games as opposed to what they could do with one now. It's sort of
Mhm.
transitioning a little bit more, but I think like that is the future, I think. Like there's the people who love video games uh, know how to approach life as a video game inherently from playing it. Anyway, so VR, so uh, then our contract was extended from May 2020 to like 2023, just because of all this stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna be
All
locked down for a while.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, I kept getting extended, just
Yeah.
because the, lockdown was extended and stuff. But like,
Yep.
but so that definitely grew the bubble for VR and for virtual stuff. The short answer why it didn't take off maybe like people were hoping is accessibility friction points, like headsets. You got to get a headset and then you got to put on a headset, and for a lot of people it's becoming more common, but again that sense of transcending realities is a real thing, and it's like people like they don't necessarily know how to feel about that. It's
Mhm.
weird, but it does in weird ways, like bring up different aspects of just life, death, like all this stuff, very subconsciously buried. So people don't even they won't say that. Like, I'm not buying this Oculus because of death, like no. It's more just like uh it's just all these aspects feed into why people don't like VR and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
But the reality, the truth is that we do transcend realities in many more ways than the tangible way of putting on a headset. Um, that's a whole other discussion, probably.
Do you think with like AI technology, immersive experiences, Oculus headsets, like all this wildness coming out and that exists already and that's probably
Mhm.
going to only become more advanced, like are we going to hit a point soon or are we already there where like people really are going to start to question like what is real and
Uh-huh.
that kind of like mind fuck? Like what's your
Mhm.
opinion on all that?
Oh yeah, man. Like the singularity, yeah, dude, like pretty wild stuff. If we're not already there, yeah. I think I think, when AI was starting to like really hit big in 2023, um, I saw it as like, oh, this is going to be really interesting because this is almost like giving more focus to in-person experiences. Technology is not quite there that it can really hit on all the data points exchanged in a human-to-human connection type situation, which is specifically what we do with interpersonal dynamics design. Um, and so it's almost like gonna saturate all the digital world so that the only thing that will be real, as far as we know, will be in-person stuff. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think of like when drum machines came out, right? People are like, oh, drummer's going to be out of business now. It's like, no, that didn't happen. What happened is, A, the people who knew how to play drums were able to create better drum loops. So any artist that's scared of AI, don't be afraid of it. Use it. Become the master of it. Because then you're going to drive this next stage, which is like drum machines lend their way to dance music and EDM and all these things that just would not have physically or sonically been possible to do with acoustic instruments. So with AI, I think there's going to be, and VR and all the other stuff, uh, there's going to be new forms of entertainment happening that would not have been able to be created without this technology and that rely on the bugs as a feature elements of the technology, if that makes sense. Like, oh,
Sure.
with AI, you could have like a million cats like flying all over, like it's just stuff that you just would never be able to like um, create. Uh, but that said, drummers did not go out of business. And in fact, there's more drummers got better and better because all of a sudden they're just kind of like, oh, those trills, those like things that were just once like an easy, just like pattern you could program. I'm going to learn how to physically do that. And so drummers got even better from it. And there's just as much value put to acoustic live bands now than ever.
Hmm.
So that to say, I think like all this technology is ideally going to help us recognize our humanity more
Yeah.
by contrast of just being like, whoa, like, and how funny that this is what data points or robots or whatever, like an algorithm determines what a human is. It's sort of like it could create like a skeleton or a structure of like an idea of a human, and then having the real thing next to it, we're going to be like, whoa, it missed all this stuff. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm really interested in. It's just like, wow, now we're going to notice, huh, I never noticed that. There's all this stuff happening with humans that we never really paid attention to before because we always thought humans was all the stuff that now AI can do.
Yeah. You know what's coming up for me when you talk about that too is like in-person interaction. I think there's so many things occurring that we're not like consciously aware of,
Mhm.
like such as like pheromones, like smells that you don't really smell consciously, but they are kind of affecting you and maybe attracting you to a certain person. Or like another thing, like I'm gonna get a little into the hippie woo side of
Yeah, do
things,
it.
but like, people meditating together and they say that like your heartbeats will synchronize,
Mhm.
or if you hug someone for more than 20 seconds, they say that your heartbeat will start to synchronize, or like, holding eye contact with someone and so like I think there's
That's
a
a
lot of
superpower.
yeah, I think there's a lot of things that people maybe don't even realize are occurring that with AI, they'll start to go, oh man, I never noticed that when I'm actually in the room with someone, I get like way more oxytocin or I just feel happier. So that's just something that literally just came to me like as you were saying that. So I'm like, man, maybe we'll suddenly evolve to realizing like there's so many more processes occurring in just being a human.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
So we're coming up close to our
Ah,
hour.
I
Um,
survived it.
You
Nice.
survived. You'll have to come
Yeah.
back and I'll do you like a proper hypothetical survival scenario.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
We haven't done those in a long time on the show, but maybe I'll bring that back for fun. Um,
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
but
I'm ready. Grab my
what do you
little.
got? What do you got going on now? Like, where if someone wants to do an immersive experience, like, how do they find you? And like, what's your next thing that you got coming up?
Yeah, yeah. So better for you. Ta-da. I don't know if this comes up on the camera. But like yeah, look up metafreyu.com. I'm on the socials. I'm on TikTok and I do regular videos where I both talk about event design and also approaching life as if it was an immersive experience designed just for you. And how uh, beneficial and how it can give you back the self-worth if you need it, if you feel like you lost it. That's it's a good trick for that.
Fantastic.
So
What's your social handles?
sure, I'm at tl.irl on TikTok and Terence Leclere on just most other socials. And
Awesome.
Meta for You is definitely the place for interpersonal dynamics design, immersive consultation. That's the place to go to, and that's at Meta for You on most socials.